Hi, Dr. Mary here with our very first Akashic Atmosphere forecast for this new year, 2023. And we've started at the new moon, which was a week ago, and we're carrying it through to the next new moon. So to begin with, what is the Akashic field and what is the atmosphere that it carries? So the Akashic field is a field of energy. It's been identified, I think, most clearly in quantum theory by quantum physicists who theorize that there is a field of energy, particles and waves, filled with particles and waves that permeates all existence and therefore carries all the information. So when we think about Akasha or the Akashic Records, it's easy to realize it must be in that field. There's a brilliant author, Ervin Laszlo, who has, I believe, a book called The Akashic Field and has investigated, he's investigated all knowledge. He's a Renaissance mind in his 80s now and just brilliant. And he has much to say about this and how it filters through science. So he would be someone really great, Ervin Laszlo, to look into if you would like even more background on how science and energy, the unseen, the non-physical intersect, and what that means for us. So with the Akashic field, with these particles and these waves, what quantum physicists found was what has been called the observer effect. And this indicates that it isn't until a focus is placed on a particle or a wave that it becomes something. There's a Schrodinger's cat is another example of how this is shown on the condition of a cat in the box. We're not going to know until we focus on that. So the focus or the observer is extremely important to take into consideration whenever you're taking in information. And it's something to be aware of yourself. So as I give, and I bring this up because I'm giving an Akashic Atmosphere report, like how does that feel? How do we interact with that? What is the consciousness happening? I'm really looking at humanity because I'm a human being, and that is my perspective in general, and then specifically I have my own perspective. So always think about that. When people have Akashic readings, sometimes if they go to different readers, they'll receive different information. One soul group from one reader and a different one from somebody else. Like, what does that mean? Who's right? Who's wrong? And I think it really lies in that perspective and the combination of who is looking and what information is most important to come through at that time. So the observer is key and will be present in any kind of scientific research. It kind of shoots the idea of objectivity out. Because there is no objective, no personal input possible if a person is involved, right? As soon as you start looking, you have an effect. And this is how we have impact with the Akashic field. So when we think of it, moving through us. We're also moving through it. There's this constant exchange of information, and therefore an ability to read, depending on your perspective, the past, the present, and probable futures, what's likely to happen based on choice in the present. So, in this Akashic forecast, I started at the new moon, which was 1 week ago on January 21st. And I've looked at it in 4 different ways. I've looked at it as politics. I've looked at it as financial, because these are like our major concerns that are running things right now. And what does that show us? And then I've looked at our personal worlds, like how are individuals interacting with the field. And then lastly, I looked at the natural world, of which we are a part, more than we ever realize. We are a part of the natural world. So when we look at what is coming through, and this is very similar to the transits of astrology, which are much more specific and, have character to them and mythological personalities and so forth interacting. Here, we're looking at a flow and a field. And we see in politics, in the political sphere, worldwide, we have a state of anger and hate. In the United States, we have a state of arrogance and scorn. So in these political spheres, like what's driving that? These are the ways that the interaction is taking place. And so in the world, we see a lot of hate and anger. This is taking place through wars and conflicts and disagreements. In the United States, we have more of a scorn and arrogance viewpoint where the needs of many are not actually being taken into consideration at that level. It's very, very self-centered. And the individual is in a state of despair. When it comes to politics, it does not seem anywhere in the world, in people's countries, even locally, that anything working with leadership and governments is doing very poorly and not bringing a lot of hope into the situation. But this changes as we move along through this month. When we come on the full moon, which is going to happen on the 5th, there's a shift in the energy of the world in politics that just tips over into some honesty and integrity. And so it's very likely that there's information that's going to be conveyed that's going to give some hope in general to the idea that something true might be conveyed, rather than a constant state of shifting realities and nobody knows what's actually true unless they're looking right at it. And then again, we always remember we're looking from our own perspective. So as the world has moved into a more optimistic view here, something honest is going to happen, that level of consciousness in the United States moves into fear and anxiety. So it's very likely that what will be revealed is something about the United States that has that in general in that political sphere has been wanted by those in control to remain hidden. Something will be revealed. It creates fear and anxiety in the United States and in the people. In the individual, it is a state of regret. So a moving through of intensity. After the full moon, the world political situation again reverts to anger, and it stays there through the rest of the cycle from the full moon all the way to the new moon on February 19th. And the United States in general in that political sphere is also in that consciousness of anger, while the individual moves into some higher levels of anxiety, and then by the next new moon is in a state of realization through whatever has been revealed. There's a state of realization that more is possible, and there is a wanting of it, but still not a recognition of individual responsibility or ability to achieve that. When we look at the financial state of the world, in general, how people are dealing with this, in the worldwide, the overall level of consciousness, as well as in the United States, is in, there's a blaming, there's a projecting. Everything is somebody, if it's not going well, it's someone else's fault, like a smoke and mirrors with finances. And so this leaves the individual who's trying to figure this out, we're trying to figure it out, angry, knowing something is up, something is being hidden. How do we find out what it is, and why would the world, why would the country in its financial state be in a state of despair? Now the shifts coming now, where we are moving into a state of wanting more in the world, worldwide, in the financial sphere, which isn't just money, right? It's a state of being able to trade, to get what you need. And so there is an uptick in wanting more all around the world, and in the United States, this very, very much. And then also a good amount of anxiety in individuals who are also feeling it. It's almost like there's a hope, and so it could be a false hope if it is in this realm of finance. When we move into the full moon, once the full moon has occurred, the world financially again is in a state of regret and despair. So things are not going well in the financial systems as they are. And this gives rise, and you hear about it all the time, some other kind of financial system, some kind of breakthrough. And yet, now in the United States, this leads to arrogance, that the rest of the world is in this depressed state. It's like it elevates a very self-centered financial aspect, group view from the U.S. Yet for the individual is still left wondering and waiting and thinking there should be more, but not knowing how that will come about, because there's not a lot of honesty anywhere in the world around the financial situation. And then as we move to the final week, moving into, the moon is waxing, we're moving into, no, it is not waxing, it's waning after the full moon, into the next new moon on February 19th. Worldwide financially, the state remains with a lot of regret over what is happening, because the system is failing. And in the United States, this leads to a lot of anger, both within the overall financial system and how it's being operated, and the individual, how it is affecting the individual. A great deal of anger, a great deal of dissatisfaction. So that is, that sounds kind of grim, like, wow, what kind of a forecast is that? But if we look at it, we're looking at politics, which is essentially not life enhancing. It just is not operating that way at all. It's a part of a financial structure. And then we're looking at that financial structure that's being propped up both ways, kind of leaving the individual outside. Now, when we also look at these levels of consciousness, I was curious about how much of this is the result of free choice, free will, as a result of humanity's choices, their free choice, free will, right? Because we do get to choose based on what is put in front of us. And how we choose that is super important. And what I found was that 5% of how the individual was feeling, both alone as an individual and as part of these systems, the financial system, the political system, only 5% of the impact was the free choice and free will of the individual. Who doesn't know this? The 95% turns out to be the manipulation and the distortion being projected into the field through fear, promoting fear and anxiety, which is being expressed off and on, off and on. You can see this up and down as far as how the world is getting along. Well, okay, there's that. Looking at it, this continuing to read the forecast, looking now at the personal world, our personal worlds, and I look at that as sort of more connected to our souls or our reason, our purpose for being here. And this is where we withdraw from the systems. We turn it off and we go within. And what is happening there? Well, there are some spectacular things happening at the individual level, not alone, but sort of like as a grassroots. So the creative expression among everyone in the world is very, very high. There is the creative expression is fed by both the intellect and the spiritual aspect of the individual. And this is very, very high. There is an increasing awareness of spirituality and creative expression. And it was very clear at the new moon last week, and it is increasing. At the full moon, there will be a release due to the creativity. It's like what no longer serves individuals everywhere getting in touch with themselves. There is a release, and there's a real crossing over into being able to see through the veil, through the physical, through facades, through lies and deceptions, and really being able to see and know what's actually going on, and not even being particularly upset about it. Because it's when we don't know, when we don't understand, we're in confusion, upset happens. And when we are upset, this is, I just saw this recently. I would say who I'm quoting, but I don't know who it is. But this is not my individual burst of words. You cannot see a reflection in boiling water. You cannot access your intuition or your inner wisdom while angry. And so when we go within, this is what this shows me, that as individuals all around the world, when we go within, our creative expression comes out and is much higher than what we're seeing in global systems. So a change is happening where we're always told it needs to happen, right? We need to do it inside ourselves and then bring it into the world. And when we're looking at this world, we're talking about the Akashic field, into that atmosphere, bringing our creative expression that has an awareness of who we really are. True love, which is life-enhancing energy, not like true love, like a lot of romance or that kind of thing, which is great. But the truest love is the energy, the behavior, the willingness that permeates everything we do, that enhances life. And this is also very high in humanity right now within. Really looking for those things that bring joy, because this enhances our lives. This is happening everywhere. And so it's like it's bubbling up, and there is going to be a way that it influences these more grand systems of control that we're dealing with. And then when it comes to using the creative expression and the life-enhancing energies that are really woken up in people over the last year, the transformation needed to integrate is very difficult. This first week, it's been filled with fear and anxiety to allow the transformation and integration of creativity and life-enhancing energy that's really coming out of people. And this changes this week. There's like there's a sense of anger, like a frustration at this fear of something so beautiful. Why are we afraid of what brings us joy and the ability to express our creativity? So actually, being angry about it is higher in frequency than being afraid. And now, when we come on the full moon, we are moving right to where we are at with our creative expression and our life-enhancing energy, and we bring it all together. And you will find within yourself as an individual, if you want it, this is a time where it will flow for you. You will have the intellectual capacity to understand how to integrate your creativity, and you'll see it with others and have a renewed sense of what is life-enhancing for you. And you got to know, if something is life-enhancing for you, it's in the highest good of all. You're not going to have something that would be, really great for you, but a lot of damage, to others. No, this is not being in the flow of the Akashic atmosphere, of the Akashic field. Now, the last area I looked at was the natural world. And I kind of think of the natural world as being different than the human world. Not because it should be, but because we've been in this this mindset of conquering nature and utilizing and profiting from resources, and sort of like making the planet your slave, and you can do anything you want to it because it's sub alive, like it isn't. But these things are not true. And so there's an issue with that humans are having to grapple with. It's like the point of view. What is the observer effect? And we kind of see this in the natural world, where the natural world at all times in this month, from the new moon, moving through the full moon into the next new moon, is unconditionally loving. What does that mean? Life-enhancing energy is pouring out of the natural world for the natural world. And if we are a part of it, if we are relating to the natural world in a positive way, we really can experience fabulous joy and even more enhanced creativity, because it's happening at such a higher level in the natural world. And we have no trouble being a part of that as long as we can overcome our disconnect from it. Now, in the United States, it's the same. The natural world, worldwide, the natural world, even though we hear like terrible things about what is being done to it, maybe so, some bad things are happening, or negative, or what is going on. However, the natural world is doing great. The natural world is feeling loved and expressing love and even embracing humanity. Because it's not just humanity that causes the natural world issues. It's also the natural world is going through, like even all the planets, everything happening is connected and going through the same thing. And this is what we see in the Akashic field. So to follow up on the natural world, when we look at how, as individuals, how are we dealing with the natural world and all of this unconditional love and life-enhancing energy pouring out of it, the individual in general is in a lot of fear and anxiety over the natural world. People are afraid of nature. And this is come from the being afraid of being attacked by wild beasts if out in nature, or other people, like something bad will happen if you're out in nature and not surrounded by a building, this sort of thing. And also the natural disasters, because the way weather and storms and nature behaves at this time, it's just incredible. And we are dealing with all of that, but none of it is happening out of any sort of anger on the part of the earth. There's no corruption on the part of the earth. This is what is happening through the atmosphere. So that is the Akashic forecast. Now, I would really love to hear what you have to say about it, and if there are particular areas you would like to have covered in the future, let me know. This is just where I'm starting. There's one more piece that I want to include in this, and this is, where does the Akashic field begin? And so the Akashic field begins with what we called the Big Bang, like the beginning of physicality, the beginning of the world, a separation from when there was nothing physical, nothing separate from a nirvana state, to now there is, and everything comes from that. And it's all theories. And so this is something to really remember. It's all theories. And so one of the most beautiful depictions of the Akashic field I've ever seen came to me through something related to A Course in Miracles. And this was the description of how on Earth, what we are dealing with is coming from the sun. So in cultures where the sun is represented as like God, the sun god, the source of creation and all of that, in our physical world, this is very true. We can give it a personality and so forth, but we do not have to. We know that from the sun, are emanating all of these waves and particles, and that are affecting every planet, every atmosphere, and so forth. And so also sweeping through us. And what we can do to influence this, even as we are such a small part of it, is as individuals to move out of fear and anxiety and being manipulated by systems into our individual ability to create and contribute into the field. And this forecast shows us that humanity is moving in that direction, that the math to getting to this is not through political or financial systems and what they're broadcasting to us, but it's through our individual creativity, through our intuition, reaching into our inner wisdom to release the fear that we have of nature, of the natural world, of what we are not being told, but what we are made of, and connecting with that. And the way that we do that is by being open to our history, our Akashic record, our past, our present, and making choices that bring us joy and a feeling of power, that synergy that comes in a moment when everything fits together. That is being in flow with the Akashic field. And the way that we're seeing it occur more readily for us is through the example of the natural world and how it functions. Yeah, and to move out of fear from that. So let me know what you think, and there will be another forecast after February 19th, after the next new moon, and I'll see you then. Thanks.